Changing the oil on a 2015 Tundra work truck model, so it doesn't have the skid plates to remove, which makes it a little easier to do the oil change. It has the smaller 4.6 liter V8, and I used a 14 millimeter socket to remove the drain pan bolt. And the drain pan is right here. I have the receptacle to receive the oil so I can recycle it and put it at the bin at the auto parts store. I don't know if you can see where that drain pan is. I'm trying to focus in on that. You can see it's still dripping from there. That's the aperture that the bolt came out of. The next step is to use a 3/8 inch socket to loosen a bolt which is in front of the cartridge filter housing, which I'm trying to get a picture of. Right there. And you have to kind of loosen this bolt without moving the housing. So you might have to hold the housing while you're turning it, but I don't know if you can see I'm turning the little bolt without the housing because I already held on to this top housing while I was using the ratchet. And there's a kit that comes with the filter to help you drain that oil out of there once you remove this bolt, which I'll show you next. Here's a little diagram which shows what I'm talking about. There's the bolt that I'm going to remove, and then there's the little clip that goes in there to help you drain the oil. I'll just show you a real version of that. This is what comes with the cartridge. This is 57041 in the aftermarket cartridge package I bought, and this is the little plug that I'm going to put in after I remove the top bolt. Okay, here we are with the little bolt removed. That just unthreads from those threads with the 3/8 socket, and then here is the little plug that goes in. You see that, and it comes out pretty forcefully when you first put it in, so make sure you're either wearing a glove, make sure the oil isn't very hot, and just let that drain. And I still have a little bit coming out of the pan in the back. I have two drains set up, and also some purists believe that you should take the cap off the top just to allow the air pressure to help the oil drain. The next step is remove the housing that was above the little screw bolt. This is an adapted 3/8 socket fit for the device that will fit out over the housing to help you remove it. I recommend using that. I noticed when I first brought the truck into one of kind of a national chain to have the oil changed, that the next morning they had left their wrench on the truck because they couldn't get it off. I then went back and I showed it to them, and they took a little while and they got it off. But don't get frustrated if it gets stuck. Just don't jam it onto the housing as you're doing it, and it'll come off easily. So your 3/8 ratchet fits into here, and then you put it on the housing and you turn it and you remove the housing. So obviously I've done all that just to speed up the video, and then you remove the housing. And there is your old filter. And you take that out. is a shaft with a spring and a little device on it that sometimes comes apart. It's easy to put back together and fit into the little socket. Okay, you put your new filter on. Okay. There are two gaskets. One is here and the other is here. Just we place them as you take them off. Just remember where they are as you're doing it. Little record keeping. You put your housing back in place after you've changed your gaskets. You put the little screw plug back in place. Don't tighten either beyond what you would believe a torque wrench would necessitate, because it'll make it harder to get off. And you've placed your drop pan bolt back in and checked for leaks. Okay, now it's time to add your new oil back in to the crankcase. When you change the filter on this engine, it suggests you put in 7.9 quarts of oil. When you hit the 7th quart, I would check, because you can never be sure that you've emptied the crankcase of all the oil, just to check that you don't overfill it. But the specs for this vehicle are 0W20, and I use synthetic oil. And this is just a little action shot of actually adding oil using a funnel. That's the neatest way to do it. You don't spill any oil on the engine block. Reduces smoke when you look at your results. So you start it up, let it run for a little bit, let it go to the idle, then level off, and you check for any leaks, any smoke. Okay, and you switch her off. Go to your drumstick. Wipe it off. Put it back in till it's flush. Then you take it out and you just check that you're between those two marks as far as your filler level. And as long as you are, you can see the nice new oil, you're good to go. That took a full 8 quarts, and that's because I think I let it drain out so much for a while. I let it drain out for about a half an hour, so both spots, and it was pretty much empty. There's one last thing I'm going to show you is where the air filter is. You got these clips here on either side. You undo them and you kind of pull it forward and then lift it up. Try not to pull that clamp off the hose there, and you can see where your filter is, and you just take it out and put the new one in the same way as you took the other one out, and it fits in flush. And that's pretty easy to do. And then you kind of push these joints back in so it slides back in snug, and then it meets these flush, and you lift the clip back up and push it down like that. Then you do the other side, put the clip up and push it down, and you should be good to go. And it's all sealed nice and level, and your little air filter tubing is set and straight, and you're done.